This episode is brought to you by HP Instant Ink. No one is reading your mind, but HP Instant Ink knows when your printer is running low and sends new cartridges before you run out. So you never have to think about ink. For details, visit hp.com/instant ink Spotify. Conditions apply.
I'm using a different mic because every time we do a Zoom, I'm way too loud, and I don't know what.
Sounds good.
I think it always sounds good, but for some reason, it always puts the hosts up too much, so I have it turned down here. So hopefully that helps. But I'm annoyed because I got DoorDash from Applebee's, because I'm a wealthy American.
Yeah.
But I forgot I got some corned beef left over from last night. Corned beef.
Fucking be some left at Mom and Dad's.
There is none left, Bob.
There better be. You're using your fucking.
I ate all of it. I ate all of it at the top of the morning to you.
You're gonna get all of your Irish ass fucking beat if there's not left.
The fairies and the leprechauns took all the corned beef.
Do Irish? Okay, so Irish youngsters. Do people in Ireland eat corned beef, or is that like an Americanized Irish thing?
When I was in Ireland, the only time I had corned beef was at what they call the carvery lunch. So you go to any decent pub in Ireland, and they have a ham and a roast beef and like a corned beef, and then they have all these like sides, and it's like one of those buffets that they serve you, and you just walk in there, and it's fucking awesome.
I mean, I feel like boiled dinners are definitely a thing.
A boiled dinner?
Not so much. I didn't run into a lot of that in Ireland. Didn't run into like boiled. That might be like a New England thing.
Boiled dinner, kid.
Right into a lot of potatoes and stuff, but nothing like the boiled dinner here. And
listen, you listen to the drop kicks. You eat a boiled dinner. You have a Guinness. You call it a fucking day, okay, kid?
Fuck that boiled dinner. It tastes like fucking. My aunt's boiled dinner tastes like newspaper.
Oh yeah, how was who'd you have on from the drop kicks, Mike?
Kenny Casey.
Oh, nice. How was that?
He's a good dude, man. He's good. I've known Kenny for years. We were part of the only I guess you wouldn't call it a float, but the only guests of the South Boston St. Patrick's Day parade that were kicked out midway through the parade.
What?
I think we're the only ones. We might be the only ones in history. We had the Dropkick Murphys on the back of a flatbed truck, and they would just play for the 3 hours we were in the parade. And so they got on there. We turned the corner onto Broadway, and they start playing, and the crowd's just going sick. Now this is during, you remember how before the pandemic, the Dropkick Murphys would do like 8 shows in a row.
Yeah.
The week of St. Patrick's Day. So this was during that. And so when that happens, Dropkick Murphys fans from all over the world come into Boston to see those shows. It's like
they ship out to Boston.
Yeah, that's right. They ship up to Boston. And so there were people, like Dropkick Murphys fans there from everywhere, and they just came out of the crowd and started walking along the side of the flatbed truck and everything that entailed. They were shit-faced. They were starting fights. They were throwing stuff. People were throwing things at them. And then about an hour into it, the riot police showed up and pushed them all back into the crowd and walked along the side of the truck. They had these long dowels, like these wooden sticks that they would beat people with. And they were just beating back the Dropkick Murphys fans. And the Murphys fans, there's this one guy from Cleveland. He had these amazing like mutton chop sideburns, and he took a swing at a cop, and he had 4 riot police beating him with these sticks. It was unbelievable. So I don't know if you guys ever saw the parade in Southie kind of goes in, and then it turns around onto another main road, but during that turnaround it goes through a couple of back streets.
I assume, I've never been, but I assume it just goes through people's backyards after a certain point.
No, it's just the back street part. It's weird because it's really like a neighborhood. They're just turning around. And so it's kind of disjointed, and you take another street, and then we turned a corner, and there were the riot police standing in a line in 2 rows, and a couple of cars and a paddy wagon blocking the street. They just came in out of nowhere. And so they stopped. We were in a truck ahead of the flatbed truck. So we stop. Our promotions director gets out. He goes, what's going on here? What's happening? And the cop just looks at him. And he just says, "Get the fuck out of here." And the guy's name was Adam. He's like, what's the problem? He goes, you're just causing a fucking riot. It's been hell since you guys been into this fucking parade. Just keep, like, we had to take a right and they blocked that part. So he said, just fucking go straight and go the fuck home. And we were just like, okay, whatever. You know, you have big sticks and guns. And so we drive out there and the band's still playing when we're talking, which was funny. Because the band's up there going, you know, and so we finally were going straight and the band stops playing and Kenny's like, what the fuck's going on? And like, they're kicking us out of the parade. And they all everybody was confused because it's never happened before. And so we get out to this other side street where we're finally out. They're unloading their stuff. I'm like, I'll see you later. I was going to go back to the T station to go back to my car. And there were cops there. And I said, I'm just going back to the T station. He goes, no, you're not. You're turning around. You're walking that way. They wouldn't have even let us anywhere near the parade route at all because they thought we would just try to get back into the parade. So I had to like take a cab, go like all the way around fucking through Dorchester. It was a fucking mess. It was one of the best St. Patrick's Days I've ever had.
Oh, I bet. Two things about that. One, if you're from Boston, New England, but Boston especially, none of this story surprises you at all, I'm sure.
I know, right?
And then two, fucking, that's the coolest fucking story I've ever heard. We looked it up. We've never seen or heard anybody that was officially entered in the parade. There were people that kind of joined the parade. Yeah.
You know, and then the officials called the cops and had them removed. But we were like officially signed up. We paid our fee. We had a place in line. No, they weren't having any more of it.
Well, I think the coolest thing ever, because if you're from around here, you just know about, even if you've never been, you know about the St. Patrick's Day parade in Boston, and you hear a million stories about it, and a lot of them involve people, you know, puking and pissing themselves at 9 a.m.
Yeah, that's all very true. That's all completely true.
But so to get kicked out of a parade where this is the right standard.
Well, we were
pretty impressive.
It was like a tornado. We were just, as we were moving along, it was just causing wreckage.
Would you say it was like a hurricane?
No,
no,
not at all. I wouldn't compare this at all to Neil Young whatsoever. This was just a drunken brawl.
All right. I need like someone to tell a joke so I can like that'll cut into the theme. And then when she gets
I farted and he said, "What the hell was that?" I don't know.
That was perfect. The theme.
I'd buy that for $1.
This is our Neil Young podcast where we mostly talk out of our ass while going through the works of Mr. Young. It's Mike Shue and the Condon Boys, Trans and Harvest and Illinois. We're gonna sit and listen to each one. It's Long May You Young.
Welcome to Long May You Young, the only podcast that covers Neil Young's catalog, its musical output, episode by episode. My name is Mike Shue, and along with Luke and Russ Condon from the band Town Meeting, we do this every week, and we cover albums, but we also have guests on. And so today, our guest on this particular episode is Neil Young's sister, Astrid Young, who's got a musical career of her own, but not only music. She is a writer and a painter. And did I see voice acting or voiceover work in there also, Astrid?
I've done so. Actually, it's funny you should say that because a friend of mine actually added that onto my profile. It's not, it's more what she does than what I do, but she identifies with, that we are very much the same kind of person. So I guess she decided to, outfit my profile with what she wishes I was.
Nothing wrong with padding the resume. Awesome. We all do it. So.
It's the internet. Who gives a shit?
Yeah,
exactly. Who knows what you can believe anyway, right? Well, so I want to start off by asking you a really important question, a musical question. And you were involved in a project in 1993 with Blackthorn. And I want to know if you had any interaction with the singer Graham Bonnet, because he's one of my favorite singers of all time.
Yeah, he's really cool. And, as how would I put this? Well, I was really into heavy music through
As am I,
teenage
Astrid.
years, and still am, actually. I mean, I still listen to King Gizzard and the Wizard Lizard's one of my favorite
Nice.
bands, and I love Queens of the Stone Age, Kaya, stuff like that. So that's the kind of stuff I listen to just on an average day. But Graham Bonnet is just such an amazing singer, and still is. I mean, he's just got such an incredible voice. And it just happened that we were, working in the same studio. So it was one of those things where he said, "Hey, you want to come and sing on this track?" And I said, "Yeah." And there you go. So that's the kind of thing that happens when you're living in Los Angeles. You run into people, just chance encounters, and get to do some pretty cool things that you wouldn't even imagine.
That's awesome.
I am also a fan of metal and heavy music, and a lot of the stuff you just mentioned there. But what I love about Graham Bonnet is not just his voice. He was one of the three, what I like to call the short-haired weirdo metal guys of the 80s. Along with, Udo Dirkschneider from Accept and Rob Halford from Judas Priest. Especially Graham, because Graham dressed like he was a cast member of Miami Vice in the 80s. He didn't do the metal thing.
He still does.
He didn't wear leather and spikes. He had the aviator glasses and the slicked hair, blonde hair, and the Hawaiian shirt and blazer. But he belted it out like just he could keep up with the rest. So he didn't need to wear the leather and spikes. That's why. That's another reason why I love Graham.
I have such a.
He's right up there with Paul Rogers to me, like in terms of Paul Rogers and Graham Bonnet and Glenn Hughes, Ian Gillan. Those are some of the best voices in rock as far as I'm concerned, and my biggest influences anyway, for sure.
Well, you know what? Forget the whole Neil Young thing. Let's just talk metal for the next hour. Because
I'm actually okay with that, and I'll tell you why. Because I always feel like I know a lot about music. I get on my high horse often, and then anytime I talk to Mike about anything, he knows at least 5 people who I've never heard of, and then I feel way inferior.
It's definitely a way to differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
So you started in music pretty young. The story goes, and this is where the internet comes in. We got a fact check. Is when your brother Neil gave you an amplifier.
I think that was about her friend. I don't think that was about Astrid.
Oh, that wasn't about her?
Yeah.
No,
I think her friend put that. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Her friend wanted her history to be.
Yeah, her friend wanted that to be the story.
Well, yeah, no. Actually, he did give me an amplifier, but my music, my journey in music started a lot before that. Like, I think my parents had me in music lessons when I was a toddler. So like I could actually read music before I could read like books. And, I mean, as at that age, you really can't do much. Your dexterity is not very good. So they have you playing like triangles and tambourines and stuff like that. But, reading the rhythmic values of music, and that's, where my roots came in. And then when I started playing, I started playing piano when I was about 6. And then I ventured into classical music and played flute and eventually oboe and English horn, which were my main instruments up until I was about 18. So I was really, really deep in the classical world for a long time. And to be quite honest, up until I was about, up until I discovered Black Sabbath, I thought that most music with vocals was boring. I was more into orchestral stuff, and I was into like heavy bombastic stuff too, like Rimsky-Korsakov and Stravinsky and Tchaikovsky and stuff like that, all the great Russian composers, and I still am. And I think I still bring a lot of those influences into the music that I write today. And, the reason that I like Black Sabbath so much too especially in the kind of mid-era, like Sabotage era, stuff like that. Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. It had a lot of like classical orchestral overtones to it, and I thought, wow, this is just incredible that you can translate this music, and it's like, most people wouldn't really see it as similar, but you'd be surprised at some of the parallels with it. Anyway, that's kind of how I got into rock and roll. And then it's true, Neil did give me an amp, and I think might have been around 14 or 15. I was just starting to play guitar at that point. And so I tortured my neighbors with that amp for a couple of years. I think I spent about a year and a half trying to learn, like, Alvin Lee solos and
Oh yeah.
And Richie Blackmore licks and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Do you still dabble with the horns and the orchestral stuff today? Are you still playing some of those instruments?
I don't. I still play flute, and I play various different instruments. But I tried to dive back into oboe again at one point, and I just don't have the embouchure for it anymore, and I don't have the time. I mean, that's an instrument that any double reed instrument takes a lot of commitment, and it's I just didn't really have the energy or the focus to do it at that time. But I was working for an orchestra contractor in Los Angeles, and she's the one that suggested it to me. She goes, if you get your chops up, she goes, I could probably get you a lot of work. And I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. But it just didn't work out. So, which is okay. There's so many other things that I do. And, I've never really even considered myself to be a singer, because I have always been focused on instrumental music and various instruments that I play. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I actually just showed up there with like $5 in my pocket. I didn't have any instruments or anything. And then I ended up singing in a metal band, which was just so far outside of what I had envisioned for myself. But there it was. And then I started thinking, well, hey, this is great. I don't have to carry any gear. I can just show up. I don't need
That's
to
such
like
a singer attitude.
It really is.
Gear. Don't even help break down the drums.
Mike, to be fair,
I see it as more of a realization, myself. Anyway.
Astrid, I'm fascinated that you're saying you don't consider yourself a singer, because one of the things that I'm really happy about that we're interviewing you is I had never listened to One Night at Giant Rock before, which is your album that came out in 2014. And oh my God, it is refreshingly good. I listened to it 5 or 6 times over the past week and loved it more each time. And I don't know, I'm really glad that I kind of discovered you. You have like kind of a Jenny Lewis, Rilo Kiley vibe, who I really love. And,
that's so nice to say.
Yeah, and it's super dynamic. I mean, starting with like a little bit more stripped down, and then kind of with Try This coming right into a real fun tune. And I don't know, I really enjoyed it. So I hope you keep making music.
Well,
yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the orchestral thing too, because I was wondering, with a lot of those arrangements in that album, there has that kind of a vibe where you can feel, now that you say that, it makes a lot of sense listening to the album. I'm like, yeah, this does have just in its energy, there's an orchestralness to it that really shines through in a really powerful and interesting way. I really like it. And Integratron got me right off the bat. I love that.
It's a great song.
It's kind of meant to do that. It's meant to be a bit of a roller coaster ride. Like Integratron is just so dry and in your face and very personal, and it kind of draws you in closer. And then I just go wham, you get them with Try This, because you think, okay, well, this is what the record's going to be about. And then I completely turn it around.
Right.
And, to me, the art of making a record is just as important as the actual songwriting itself. It's like how you sequence the record, what kind of a journey you want the listener to go on, the range of emotions that you're pulling there. I really like cohesive albums that kind of tell a story from beginning to end. And I'm kind of that era where, you know, you put on a record and you listen to it from beginning to end. I think now things are just so focused on songs and singles and stuff like that, that you lose that immersive kind of journey. And, you know, it's just like, I figure if I have somebody's attention for 5 minutes, why not try to grab it for like, you know, 45, right?
Yeah. Well, that's I mean, that's the thing that draws us to, I mean, at least me and Russ for our band, that drew us to Neil in the first place, was you can really hear the cohesiveness, and also kind of you hear when he means it. And so when I was listening to this album, you hear it the whole time. And then the last song, I think it's called Amy's Song, it really like kind of grabs you in the gut. And it's this really kind of, it's an earworm, first of all. And it's just this beautiful song. And it's, I don't know. I really like that album. So
You gave me chills. Yeah. Amy's Song's really special song to me, because I have one of my best friends, her name is Amy, and she passed away going back now probably about 12 years or so. And I wrote that song on the day that she passed.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's kind of about our friendship and about things that we talked about and things that we did. And it's really unfortunate that right now her husband, Jimmy, who is also one of my best friends, is going through treatment for pancreatic cancer at the moment.
Jeez.
And that's my current musical project, is I'm working with some of his very, very good friends, and we're putting together an album covering his songs. And, you know, that it's just, it's a sad irony in a way that music is involved in both these people's memories, you know, that I have of them. And anyway, you know, Amy's Song is really special to me. And I
remember when the valley used to be a valley before the tide came in. Malibu is our advantage now, and those that remain had to ride a big wave. Funny how we never thought of dying young or getting caught. Life was pretty good, but it's so much better now. At the shoreline, San Fernando shoreline. I love to watch.
And I really, you know, a lot of people listen to it and go, well, I don't really get why it's called Amy's Song. Why isn't it called San Fernando Shoreline or whatever? It's like, well, you know, there's a story behind it, but you can really make up your own meaning to it. You know, whatever floats your boat. It doesn't matter. It's a very personal song to me.
Yeah. It's always fascinating to
Sounds
me
beautiful.
when people comment on a piece of art and say, I don't know why this. And it's like, this is art that I made. Why do you need to know anything about how it was created? Like, does it affect you at all? If so, great, because that was the intention.
That's right. That's what art is all about. Like, you know, art has two components. There's the creation of it, which is where the art actually exists. And then there's the interpretation of it. And the interpretation is just as important. And, you know, some artists will disagree with me because they are, you know, so focused on what the art should mean or how, you know, it's almost like a winemaker. Like, I'm in the wine business too, so I get this a lot, you know.
Okay.
You describe a wine, and then the winemaker turns around and said, no, those flavors aren't in there. You should be getting this and this and this. And it's just like, well, yeah, but I'm getting that, you know. Right. So I trust my nose. I'm not going to just say that it tastes like that or it has those aromas just because you say so. But art is the same way. And I think that really the beauty of it is in the interpretation and how it makes you feel. Because, I mean, you probably had this before too, where you love a song and you think you know what it's about, and then you find out what it's really about, and you go,
Yeah. Oh my God, so many times.
Yeah.
Especially on this podcast.
Better, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Yeah, it's also a strange thing to even when you're told what a quote unquote a song is about. I feel like it's not that too, because as a songwriter, you kind of think you know what it's about, and then sometimes when you're in the process of writing, you just end up you just write things, and then you think you kind of look back, and maybe I'm on. Maybe
I agree with you
off here, but I feel like sometimes you set out with an intention, other times you don't. The muse just whatever, but then you write a song, you create a piece, whatever it might be, and then you kind of in retrospect are like, oh, I can see that this sort of seems like I was saying this, but you didn't even really know it at the time. It just happened, It's just a happening, and then
sometimes it shifts too. Like
right
after 5 or 6 years, you're like, I wrote it with this intention, but now I see this whole other thing, which I don't know. I love songs.
Yeah.
I love music.
No, that's happened to me before. I've got this one song on Giant Rock called "Happy," and it was basically cobbled together over a period of years. I mean, I think I rewrote the melody and the lyrics so many times that by the time I finished the song, I didn't even know, it didn't really even mean anything to me. It just, because it always seemed like it was just kind of slapped together like a house of cards in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
sometimes the song is just kind of doing it. It's just the song is its own thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And thinking that you have control over it sometimes is the worst thing you can do.
I also love the process. Like, so when me and Russ write, a lot of times, sometimes we'll work we'll have a song idea and we'll work on it for years. Like we have this song called All the Bars, and it's a fun song, but Russ kind of came up with this melody and it took us 2 or 3 years to kind of finalize it. And it's a fun song. I like it. But then sometimes you're just together with people who you admire and who you like to write with, and then a song just comes out of nowhere and it's done in like 25 minutes. And I like the dynamic of both of those. I don't know. I just think it's fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that it's like, visual art or music or anything that you create, I think it's you need to respect the muse and what it's saying to you. And sometimes it, requires a little bit more thought, it's funny because you can work on something and think it's never going to be done. But like you said,
right.
Sometimes it'll just come to you all at once and you go, bam, there it is. I can't think of anything else I want to do to it.
And if you tried to plan it, it wouldn't have happened.
Exactly.
And then I have a weird question for you as well, along the lines of muse and art coming from wherever. A vibe I get from the paintings I found of yours, because did you also do the artwork for One Night at Giant Rock?
Actually, well, yes and no. I mean, okay. I did the design for the cover and stuff like that, but all the photography was done by a guy named Jim Metzger, who is really interesting. I've never met the guy. And I was looking for photographs of the Mojave Desert, and because I spent a lot of time out there when I was living in California. I kept horses out there, and I just love it, just the area around Joshua Tree and Yucca Valley and whatnot. So I was looking for some photographs to use from down there, and I came across this guy's, he's just an amateur photographer, but it just really captured the essence of what I was looking for. And so we got to talking, and he's a retired military guy, and he just does this as a hobby. He's not a professional. He just loves to do it, and would not take a dime from me for doing this. He was just happy to be involved and stuff. So it was a great collaboration. It was he basically gave me license to do whatever I wanted with his photograph. So most of them are I think in the inner when you open up the CD, you probably don't have that there, but there's I did composite.
What's a CD?
Yeah. I know, crazy, isn't it? But I did some composites of a few of his photos, and it's really kind of spooky. I'll send you a file so you can
nice.
look at it.
Well, the weird part of my question was that this may be strange, and I don't know, but some of the vibes I was getting between that visual aspect of it and then just some of the energy and lyric stuff, it felt very like extraterrestrial.
Yeah.
Is that
Okay.
is that cool to say? Which I fucking love.
Well, okay, so I don't know if you know the story of the Integratron, but it's this kind of looks like a little silo, and it's out in the middle of the desert, like really in the middle of nowhere near landers. And the guy that built it, George Van Tassel, is he claims that he got the schematics to build it from aliens, as he was abducted by aliens, and they took him on his ship, and they gave him the schematics to make this thing, and it's supposed to rejuvenate human cellular growth, and it was also being used for experiments in time travel. So George was he was an interesting fella, and he actually died under very mysterious circumstances back in the late 60s. And it's gone through various ownership since then, and now these two ladies own it, and they run these sound baths. They do these anyway, you pay and you go and you lie.
Yeah, and I think I know about, they like do all these sounds around you, and so I wasn't off by saying that there was a very alien
cool. you were right on the money there.
YouTube rabbit hole I'm gonna go down tonight researching all this stuff.
The Integratron.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah, the Integratron.
You definitely captured it then. That's really awesome.
Even Giant Rock, I've never been, but so I looked up Giant Rock. Obviously, you mentioned it in the song, that the first track, but I looked it up. It looks pretty fascinating. It's just this huge rock in the middle of the desert, isn't it? Like this monster rock.
That's right, massive boulder. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But there used to be this guy. He was actually a friend of George Van Tassel, but I think his last name was Kreider. But he had dug this crater underneath the rock, and he was living under it. And he had this little restaurant there called the Come On In.
This is a real story.
Fly in there to eat his pie, and and they have UFO conventions. To this day, they still have UFO conventions out there. I mean, there's a lot of kind of X-Files activity in the area. It's very, it's kind of, it's hard to describe unless you've been there. I mean,
I gotta go there.
In that area has this vibe that is so heavy and so intense.
I love that.
We need to make a podcast road trip out there, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, you definitely need to.
What were you going to say, Mike?
I went camping out there. I want to say, geez, it's almost been 20 years now. There was a phone booth in the middle of the desert. And like a lot of people were calling it and stuff. So I worked for the radio station WAF, and we organized this trip. A couple of DJs, we just went out there and we would document our trip going out there in pictures and video. And we were working with a TV station. We get out there and there's people from all over the world calling this phone booth. But yeah, the desert has a completely different vibe to it. There's a lot of weirdness out there. We met this guy who was living in these like series of berms. They were just mounds in the desert and with doors in them. And you'd go in and there's like this full on, living space. Like he had a library in one.
What?
Was in another, but they were all separate, like
a Hobbit kind of
like that. Yeah, but you couldn't even tell like there was any. They just looked like mounds.
The desert kind of attracts people like that.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff out there with us. It was great.
Fascinating.
Awesome time, yeah.
I got a lot of stories about stuff that happened out there. It's pretty neat, and I was just out there like actually not a couple of years ago. It still holds the same allure for me, and it's a big reason why. Actually, I was going to call the record Integratron, but the ladies that own the Integratron told me I couldn't because they have a trademark on the name and they make music CDs too. So their lawyer told them to tell me no. But she said to me, she goes, "Well, don't feel bad. I had to say no to Robert Plant too."
Wow, you're in good company then. That's
So then I said, okay, well now I got to think of another name for the record, and it's a line in the song Integratron, One Night at Giant Rock. So I just decided to use that, and I actually have a song called One Night at Giant Rock that didn't actually make it onto the record. So that I'm planning to put that one on the next record just to confuse people.
Nice.
And getting back to the UFO thing. When I do make that record, it's going to be called Spaceship Calling. So,
Awesome.
Cool.
Or you could do the Neil thing and record it and then release it 30 years from now, which is a thing he's been
there's no time limits, man.
Exactly.
It'll be done when it's done. You know?
So one of the things,
Probably something that my brother would say. So.
yeah, exactly. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, since we started doing this podcast, I was, a Neil fan, and just in the way that I think anyone would be, and I liked a lot of his stuff. I grew up really liking, the band. Levon Helm was a big idol of mine, and as a drummer singer, of course, but also just The Last Waltz I really liked when I was a kid. My dad showed me that, and I fell in love with Neil there. And then, so it was just kind of a basic sort of Neil thing. And then once we started doing this podcast and we were going album by album, and once we got to Harvest, and then from that point on, I fell, you can ask these guys, like hard.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
With Ben Keith.
It's going to get weird, Astrid.
It's going to get weird.
So in love with Ben Keith. And I think Ben Keith is one of the most underrated geniuses, musical geniuses. I think he is one of the main reasons why Neil is.
How do you really feel, Russ?
I love Ben Keith so much. And so then doing the research, I realized you were on Ben Keith's Christmas album. And not only that, but you were on the Johnny Cash Drummer Boy tune. So I was like, holy shit, Astrid, that's amazing. Well, so I definitely wanted to hear about the Ben Keith.
Yeah, that was, I totally agree with you where, what you're saying about Long Grain. And I know that Neil would concur on that too. I mean, that was, actually, Ben and Neil got introduced in Nashville by Elliot Mazer just before the Harvest record. So that kind of really kicked off an era for him. Mm-hmm. And they were best friends right up until the end. I think Ben was actually living on the ranch when he died. So
yeah, that's what I saw. And for the listeners who don't know, Long Grain is what Neil called Ben.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But what were you saying, Astrid? Sorry. Yeah. So what was that?
Well, that actually came from, they called him Uncle Ben, and then it went to Long Grain.
Yeah.
Oh, I never made that connection till right now.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Now you know.
Takes me a while.
It seemed like Neil was, to me anyway, you would know better, obviously, but he didn't trust a lot of people when it came to making his music. But with Ben Keith, he put a lot of trust into him.
Yeah, that's for sure.
What was it about Ben, do you think, that besides being an amazing musician, what was it about him, do you think, that garnered that trust?
Well, I think it's probably the same as it is for any other musician that you play with, that you have like an intense musical chemistry with, like you play with them and you lock in and you look at each other and you have this almost telepathic feeling of the music, and the music is actually outside of who you are as a person. It becomes this other thing. And I know that's what he had with Ben, and there's been various other musicians along the way that he's had the same kind of relationship with, and people other than musicians as well, but I think that was, when you find that's like the holy grail of musicianship. Doesn't matter whether it's, a drummer, bass player, singer, whatever, when you have that thing, you just have to do everything in your power to make sure that it, you feed it and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so Ben worked on Harvest Moon as well as you.
Yeah.
And what were those sessions like? Because from all I've read, a lot of people said those were just really, it was a great time, that the vibe was really good. Yeah. And that people were getting along. What was it about those sessions that made them so special?
It was really relaxed, and the way Neil records is very relaxed as well. I mean, the studio kind of looks like a living room, and it's out in the middle of the redwoods, and so it's really cool to just be there. And the vibe is very mellow, and I think they all just clicked at that time. Kenny and Tim and Ben and Neil, and I mean, once they had a groove going, there was no stopping them.
Yeah.
And the great thing was, he was able to pull in most of the people that actually worked on the Harvest record as well. So that was pretty cool. Me and Nicolette were the only newcomers, really. Everybody else had actually played on Harvest. So it was, Jack Nietzsche, James Taylor, Linda Ronstadt, and all the rest of the guys. So it was a legacy coming around again. And you can try to orchestrate these things, and it doesn't work if you try too hard. And sometimes it just happens naturally. And I feel really blessed to have been a part of that album, because it was a very special album. And it was also the first time I had worked with my brother directly. So it holds a special place in my heart. And a lot of fear stemming from that, first couple of sessions too. It's just like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
So was this a change of pace for you? Because you were doing more like kind of heavier, like metal stuff up into this. So have you always appreciated that kind of more acoustic-y vibe, or was this kind of a little bit of a change of pace for you?
Well, it was a total change of pace. I mean, I've been in rock bands in Los Angeles and playing on the Sunset Strip, and I had big hair and blah, blah, blah,
I saw some pictures.
kind of my thing. But, I had almost done a couple of things with Neil, not directly, but he was going to do this little tour, and my band was going to open up for him. The dates didn't happen and stuff like that. So, it was a period where I was doing a lot of recording, and of course I am always interested in his feedback. So I would send him the stuff that I was doing, and he was kind of telling me what he liked about it and things like that. And so I certainly didn't anticipate him asking me to sing on this record, but I mean,
pretty fucking cool.
No, right?
Yeah.
Oh God, no! Why would I do that?
Oh, that's awesome.
With Nicolette Larson, I mean, that talk about another really talented person. What was that like?
Oh, she's amazing, and she was so sweet, and she really took me under her wing as a background singer, and basically taught me everything I knew. And I really relied on her for a lot of things. But she pushed me farther than I ever thought I could go. There was moments when, especially with Unplugged, which happened like right after Harvest Moon.
Yeah.
And so we're standing there together, and actually Neil had completely changed the set list, and right before the show. Doesn't always happen, but you can never tell with him. So I'm looking at it going, we never rehearsed that song or that song. And she's going, oh, don't worry about it. It's easy. And I'm thinking, I don't know if I could do this, But if you look at the Unplugged video, you'll see, I don't know if it was Long May You Run or might have been another song. But when they cut to us, we're just coming back to our mic. So she would just lean over and she would sing my part in my ear and then go back to her mic, right? So, and we were doing this, we did this on 2 or 3 songs, right? And it worked out fine, but it's like, you wouldn't know what was going on.
No one would, yeah. No one would have any idea. It came out awesome.
According to Jimmy McDonough's book, Shaky, I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he described it, or from what other people described it, as a really tense experience doing the Unplugged gigs. Like the New York ones broke down. Neil actually literally ran out of the building. And then the LA ones, with the changing of the songs, it caused a lot of conflict with the people in the band. And we recently did an episode on that album. We love that album, and it just sounds so great. It doesn't sound like that was the case. I mean, do you see that experience?
Oh God, well, there was some shit going on at the time. Like the first Unplugged was Neil was sick, so it almost didn't even happen. We were in the limo on the way to the airport when we got the call that the gig was off, right? So it's like me and Drummond and Nicolette in the car, and we're going, okay, well, we got the car, let's go have some Mexican food. So we were going to this restaurant, we were going to have lunch, didn't even park the car. It's just like, okay, the gig's back on. And we were on our way to the airport again. And so we did it. And, the sound check was great. It was amazing. It sounded so good and so sweet. But the problem was, and this as a live performer, that you don't want to sound check when you know that there's going to be another band after you, and that they're going to have to pull down all your settings and then set them back up. Well, that's exactly what happened. So we were in Ed Sullivan Theater the night before, and we had a great rehearsal. And then Katie Lang was coming in the next day to do her Unplugged. And so they had to rip everything down and then put it back up for us. And by the time we got back in there, not only Neil was under the weather anyway, but it sounded like crap, and it sounded completely different than it did the night before. So he just couldn't get comfortable, and he kept stopping and starting songs and stuff like that. So he actually, he buried that that show. It's never going to see the light of day. But the one that we did in Los Angeles was really good, except that we had this little, I can talk about this because most of the people involved aren't around anymore. So the reason for the tension, and the set change and everything like that, Neil was really, really pissed off. What had happened was, before the gig, we were all sitting in the dressing room, and Kenny Buttry and Tim Drummond come marching in and said, we think we should be getting more money, and we want you guys to band together with us, and we're going to demand more money from Neil, because when I was working with Eric Clapton, we got paid this much, and blah blah blah. So this is Drummond talking, right? And Kenny's kind of standing behind him going, yeah, that's right. So I kind of went, I don't want to have any part of this. And Nicolette said, you know what, I'm kind of okay with what I'm making. So off they went, and then we took a break and went for dinner. And I went to dinner with Neil and Elliot and David Briggs. And we're sitting there talking about, Drummond came up, and I said, yeah, you wouldn't believe what they did just a couple of hours ago. They came into the dressing room, and I relayed the whole story. I laid it out, and you should have seen all the jaws dropped at the table, right? Elliot got up, walked away from the table, got on the phone immediately. And then by the time we got back to the gig, Neil was he was fuming. I mean, you could see the steam coming out of his ears, and he just let them all have it, right? Buttry and Drummond. And so then we got the set change, right, which kind of eliminated the band during the first set completely, because originally we were all playing on every song, right? And then he changed the set, so he did the first half of the show acoustic, and then the second half of the show with the band. And but here's another little moment that you can look at the video, and it's specifically in I think it was Look Out for My Love. And he's going along, and he says, da, 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 but you can't feel it. And then he's got this look on his face. He turns around, he looks at Drummond, and Drummond's like looking at the floor, wouldn't look him in the eye, and both him and Buttry are kind of looking down. And oh man, it's just like, if daggers could kill, you would not believe it. And
oh man,
that was the last time that Drummond worked with Neil at all.
Oh wow.
What, Mike, was Tim the one who caused the whole Time Fades Away thing too?
I believe that was,
the same exact issue, wasn't it?
I'm speculating that's why Neil was so angry, because he had done it before.
Before, and here's the thing though. Tim was married to this woman, Inez, and for years, 30 some odd years or something like that. They were married since they were kids. And Inez was very outspoken, very in your face, very vocal. And she's the one that used to march into offices and demand more money for Tim. So everybody just assumed it was Inez, right? And then so when he did this himself a couple of times, this after him and Inez had broken up at some point, and then he started doing it, and everybody's going, oh, okay, so this is where it's coming from. This is not because of Inez, right?
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and it's unfortunate because he shot himself in the foot at that point. It's just like, oh, man. And like, for me, I mean, I felt really bad for blowing up the whole thing. And it was a little bit of naivety on my part. But then when you think about it, it's just like, why are you marching in here and selling your manifesto to your boss's sister? You know, it's just like, how do you think that's going to go?
Yeah. Bizarre.
Super weird. It's so weird.
And why are you doing it like right before you guys are supposed to play? You
Yeah.
know, really, you know, you're ruining but you know, again, like I said, we covered the Unplugged album, and it just sounds so great, and you can't even imagine. I read that stuff in Shaky, and I'm like, it just really doesn't sound like there was all that stuff going down.
I feel like the reason it didn't is just because of like you guys and like probably Nils and Ben too, because I can't imagine them being too much of a pain in the ass. We interviewed
Nils is so cool, and
he was one of our favorite. We interviewed.
He was our first guest.
Yeah, and he was amazing. He was the sweetest guy we've ever talked to. He was incredible.
I love Nils.
We do too.
A real quick total side note on when you first started talking about this, Russ, I'm sure this happened when she was talking about sound. Shout out to all the sound guys who make it look easy and who do it the right way.
Sound people.
But because when you get a bad sound person, it's the only show you remember for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's
That's
true.
true.
Yeah. But the people who do it right, you're a gift from God, and you know who you are, and we love you.
Yes, I agree. I mean, playing on big stages, especially, you have to trust that the front of house is going to be great. You know, because you can't really hear what it sounds like out there. But your monitor guy is like God.
Yeah.
You know, it's I can't tell you the value of having a good monitor person.
Oh my God.
Been in that position so many times where you can't hear anything else and you depend on that person.
Yeah, Luke and I have been there many times.
Yeah.
So many times. And shout out to the monitor guy at the Bull Run. I've already forgot your name. What's his name, Russ?
He was Alex. Yeah.
Alex. Great fucking guy.
Astrid, we're going to wrap up here soon, but I wonder if I could get your impressions on David Briggs, because we've gotten several different impressions on David Briggs, some very good, some not good at all. And then some that were kind of, you know, some just weird experiences. But did you work with him directly at all? Did you interact with him, and how did he treat you? What kind of experience was that?
Well, you have to understand with any of these people, I've known them since I was a child, like since I was, you know, in some cases since I was, you know, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Most of them since I was around 9 or 10, because that's when I started hanging out at the ranch and stuff like that. But I've known Briggs that long, and he's always treated me like a part of the family. And you know, everybody has their quirks and stuff like that. And I could never. I have a lot of respect for David Briggs's body of work, because, you know, he's worked with a lot of people other than Neil. You know, I mean, most famously, he made Alice Cooper's first 2 records, you know, before the big one, unfortunately. But it shows that he has the ears and he has the vision, and he definitely wasn't afraid to take chances. You know, I've also had some weird experiences with Briggs. You know, we've had to leave him on the road a couple of times because he just, you know, went off the rails, and he would have fights with Neil, and they wouldn't talk for years. And you know, he kind of, it was the same thing with Crazy Horse, you know, it would be like back and forth. It's just like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore, you know, and then he wouldn't talk to them for a few years. And then it's just like, okay, well, but we're family, you know, so we need to get this back together again. But one of the things that I noticed about Briggs, probably, you know, I would say in my 20s or 30s, and I was just kind of watching his modus operandi and how he dealt with Neil, because there's a lot of people that would probably say why was he so important to Neil? He really doesn't have the same level of expertise and chops that some of his other producers have, but David had, and this, I don't know, you can take this any way you want. David had this remarkable ability to listen, and he would listen to what Neil had to say, and then about 20 minutes later, he would regurgitate it back to him. And then Neil would think it was Briggs's idea. So that's kind of like what their relationship was based on. But, in a broader sense, because that's the nuts and bolts of it, but in the broader sense, David was actually able to take Neil's ideas and facilitate them and make them happen, which is very much what Elliot did for the rest of his career. He basically gave Neil an environment to create in freely. And
Elliot Mazer?
David did that too.
No,
Elliot Mazer?
Roberts. I think you're talking
Elliot
about
Roberts.
Elliot Roberts.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he always called him the best manager in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I miss him. It's hard to believe he's gone.
Yeah.
And Mazer just recently passed away.
Yeah, I know. That's really sad. And, I saw him a couple of years ago, and I had no idea that he was dealing with dementia. But, that can tend to take you really fast. But, the fortunate thing about Mazer, I heard, is that he was laughing when he died, and he was watching the Super Bowl.
Awesome.
So,
Oh, that's awesome. It's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Luke.
No, I was going to ask a really dumb question, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh no, go ahead. Let's hear the dumb question.
Well, I was going to say Neil is referred to as the godfather of grunge. Astrid, are you upset that you're not referred to as the godmother of glam rock? I literally had that written down. So.
Oh God, that would be quite a dubious.
And then I wanted to get into what even is glam rock, because Mike is very familiar, but I feel like I don't really know very much about what that is. But we can save that for another podcast if you want.
Yeah, probably best to do that. Well, I always like to think that my brother in the greater firmament of rock and roll is very godlike, which makes me the sister of God. So
there you go.
Nice. Not a bad place to be.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, Astrid Young, thank you so much for joining us here on Long May You Young. You said you were working on some new music these days, so hopefully we'll hear that soon.
I hope so too. I the guy that I produced One Night at Giant Rock with, Victor DiLorenzo, who was the original drummer in the Violent Femmes, founding member. Anyway, we're going to be working together again, and we've already been kind of scheming up some ideas and hopefully finish up some of the songs that we didn't put on Giant Rock. So, and
then you also have the book Being Young, which people can get that.
Yes. Okay. So the book, just really briefly, because I know you got to go. It's out of print right now, and I just had the rights reverted back to me from the publisher. So currently it's available on the Kindle store and whatever e-reader situation that you can drum up. But I'm going to do a little bit of a rewrite, which I was intending to do anyway. And I'm actually going to be collaborating with both of my brothers on some of our recollections of our dad. And, so I was actually just talking to Neil about that the other day. So,
nice.
So that's upcoming, and hopefully I'll get that done over the next few months and get it to a new publisher. And I'm hoping that we'll see that on bookstore shelves again.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
When that happens, we'd love to have you back on and to talk about the book and then what you changed in it and stuff. That'd be great.
Yeah. And if you as soon as you get that new stuff, send it out, because I'm not kidding. I really like your last album, and even though it was 7 years ago it came out.
And you said the files with the artwork. I'm interested in that too. And Luke and I will send you our album.
Yeah,
fantastic! I'd love to hear it. Oh, and you're a fan of stoner rock. There's a series that that's going on right now. It's a live streaming series called Live in the Mojave Desert, and it's Nick Oliveri's new project, Stoner. He was the bass player in Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's I think that's like this Saturday. So if you Google Live in the Mojave Desert, you'll come up with that. And it's actually really cool because it's not like right at Giant Rock, but it's very, very close to that area.
I'm Googling it right now.
Have you participated in any of those sessions those live, you know, like I know Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. He worked with Nick. You know, has put some of those together. Have you ever participated in any of those? I hear they're pretty wild.
I haven't, but I know a lot of those guys just because I hung out in that general neck of the woods, and you know, really into the desert scene. So
Nice.
Yeah. And hopefully everything picks back up soon. I mean, this year has been shit, but
fingers
hopefully-
crossed.
yeah.
All right. Astrid, thank you so much.
We
for joining
really
us
appreciate
again.
your time, Astrid. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank
My
you.
pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you.
And
And,
let's keep in touch, and can't wait to hear you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah,
and thank you.
yours as well.
And youngsters, definitely check out One Night at Giant Rock. It honestly has become one of my favorite albums this month. So definitely check that
It's
out.
really, really good.
Youngsters is what we call fans of this podcast, Astrid.
Fantastic. Okay.
Which is weird, but
Yeah, but anyway, all right.
we're weird. So.
Bye, everybody.
Astrid, appreciate it.
By the time you hear this, I won't be gone. I'm gonna sing it till the end. You won't have to listen, it's just gonna be. Once we were enemies, once we were brothers. Every time I hear your call, I see it all. Oh. Now the centuries fly beside each other like weaving this melody under the skin. Would you let me in? I will not stray from your love. From your love, from your love, from your love, from your love. One night at the Giant Rock, I saw the ocean from the sky. Oh, the way we used to fly.